Hello everyone, this is my presentation on the benefits of eating a healthy diet. Uh, Before I delve any further, I did want to go over the learning outcomes for week 2. The overall focus this week was to better understand how the body processes carbs, fats, proteins, vitamins and minerals, and water. In addition to this, our goal was to expand our understanding on how these components can change with age, as well as how our food choices might impact us throughout our life. This is just like an overview of what I'm going to be talking about. First off, what are the macronutrients? I'm going to review carbs, proteins, and fats. And I'm going to talk about what healthy macronutrients look like versus unhealthy, connect it to the dimensions of wellness, and then how it can impact us later on. So for the sake of this presentation, macronutrients is going to be an umbrella term for carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And basically, macronutrients are the nutrients that you need to function and you need them in large amounts. Now, carbohydrates, they're also known as carbs, and they're, as I said earlier, one of the macronutrients found in a majority of the foods and drinks that we consume. And they are also used to make glucose to fuel your body. They consist of 3 main types, which are fiber, starch, and sugars. Overall, these carbs are necessary for your body to make glucose, a source of energy needed for us to function. When glucose enters the bloodstream, it is used as fuel for cells. It is also, in addition to this, to serving as a primary energy source, carbohydrates are also a source of fiber. They add sweetness and flavor to food, and they reduce the use of protein for energy. Our bodies digest this macronutrient by using specific enzymes, starting in the mouth and then completing the process in the small intestine. Now, another way to classify carbohydrates is by calling them or identifying them as simple carbs, which are mainly consist of sugars, or complex carbohydrates, which are usually starch or fibers. Now, both the simple and complex carbohydrates are based on how fast your body can digest them. Complex carbs are known as healthy carbs because they contain more vitamins and minerals, and because they are less likely to cause spikes in blood sugar. Simple carbs, on the other hand, are broken down quickly within the body to be used as energy and may lead to weight gain or an increase in heart disease or diabetes. Simple carbs are sugars that can be naturally found in foods as well, but they usually in the American diet, they're added to foods such as soda, baked goods, or fruit juice. And although they can be easily used for energy, resulting in a faster rise in blood sugar and insulin, they're not always the healthiest. Now, it is recommended that carbs make up around 45 to 65% of our total calorie intake. And for those that are interested in the caloric value, they contain around 4 calories per gram. Fiber, as I discussed earlier, is a type of carbohydrate, and fiber is described as a complex carb that the body cannot break down. However, it passes through the intestines, stimulating and aiding in digestion. Fiber is also really helpful because it helps regulate blood sugars, lowers cholesterol, and keeps you feeling full longer. It can also help move food throughout your digestive system, promoting regularity and helping prevent constipation. Moving on to proteins. Proteins are basically found all throughout the body, and they assist in many different functions. They're made of amino acids, and some of the functions that they help with are producing enzymes, fluid balance, and hormone regulation. Additional functions include nutrient transport and aiding in structure and movement within the body. Going back to the enzymes, enzymes can act as catalysts, which are crucial in a majority of the body's chemical reactions. And in terms of regulation, proteins can help distribute water throughout the body and help bodily fluids maintain a proper pH balance. In addition to this, proteins can also help substances move in and out of the cells. This is known as protein transporters. and they can either attach or carry nutrients in the blood. The recommended intake for protein is around 10 to 35% of our daily caloric intake. It's also important to keep in mind that protein needs may vary by sex, stage, life stage, and physical demands. As for fats, they're another type of macronutrient that gives our body energy. Fats serve as a component of cell membranes and nutrient transport. In addition to this, fats provide protection and insulation for internal organs. Your body at first is using carbohydrates when exercising. However, after 20 minutes, exercise can depend partially on the calories from fat to keep you going. Fat is also important because it helps our body absorb certain vitamins such as vitamin K, A, D, and E. These are also known as the fat-soluble vitamins. As for the different types of fat that we consume, many consider the bad fats to be trans fatty acids or saturated fats, and good fats to be unsaturated fats, and this includes monosaturated or polyunsaturated fats. Now, they do recommend that we keep our consumption of trans and saturated fats as low as possible, and this is because usually artificial trans fats come from food that are hydrogenated and many food manufacturers use these artificial trans fats because it makes the food more inexpensive, it increases the food's shelf life, stability, and texture. Most of the fats that you eat or that you should eat should come from unsaturated sources, and this is usually found in nuts, vegetable oils, and fish. Kind of moving on to what we would consider unhealthy versus healthy macronutrients. We have our carbohydrates. So in this image, we have what most people consider good carbs, and this includes vegetables, fruits, wheat-based products, and then on the other side, we have bad carbs, which are sugary foods such as donuts, cookies, juices with a lot of sugar, white bread, and so for the good carbs, we have a lot of examples of complex carbs, and this means that our glucose levels aren't going to spike up like they would with the simple carbs. On the other hand, or on the other side, we have the bad carbs, and these bad carbs are more likely to have, or they're examples of simple carbs, sorry. And this is because they're filled with a bunch of sugars. The energy that you get from it is not going to last as long. Your glucose levels are going to spike immediately afterwards. It's also eating these types of foods, it's not the best because it increases your likelihood for different cardiovascular diseases, and also it increases your chances of, or your risk of getting diabetes. In addition to this, the foods here that are considered bad carbs, they're what some would call empty calories. It's not empty calories, I'm sorry. They're not considered nutrient dense foods, meaning that they have a high amount of calories but a low amount of nutrients. And it's the opposite for good carbs. So they don't have as many calories, but they are rich in vitamins and minerals. For protein, we can get protein from different sources. This can be from fish, from nuts, from beans, avocados, cheese, red meats, white meats. It's important to kind of get a variety of different types of meats. Usually they tell you to stay away from eating or to avoid eating too much of the red meats and to focus more on white meats, and to also get more protein from plant-based products as well. Here we have examples of good fats and bad fats as well. as I mentioned earlier, we really want to avoid consuming too much or too many trans and saturated fats. This can be found in fatty meats, sugary foods, fried foods especially. And another reason why we really want to avoid these is because they can increase our risk of coronary heart disease. And so instead of eating these, what we consider bad fats, we really want to focus on good fats, which will be found in more lean meats, fish or seafood, white meats, and walnuts, and different kinds of oils, such as olive oil. I found a really good quote when I was doing research online as to why you should start eating more healthier foods compared to unhealthy foods. And it goes like this: the food that you eat can either be the safest and most powerful form of medicine or the slowest form of poison. And this is by Anne Wigmore. So she's a food activist, an older food activist that she kind of prefers the going back to nature kind of aspect and focusing more on natural foods. Moving on to the dimensions of wellness and how they connect to your food choices, I really wanted to focus on intellectual wellness and physical wellness. In terms of intellectual wellness, it's described as expanding your knowledge, creating networks, and continually challenging your mind. The way I see it is that you can continue to learn and challenge yourself by trying new recipes, ingredients, spices, or alternatives, whether it be an alternative to a really sugary ingredient, or whether you decide to maybe try an alternative to a high fatty ingredient. In addition to this, you're trying to be more physically and mentally balanced prior to exams, and you can do so by eating nutritious foods, getting enough sleep, and being active. As for physical wellness, you are trying to kind of create more physical self-care practices that will support your health and wellness, and this can be done by maintaining an active lifestyle, exercising, um, but it can also be done by eating more nutritious foods, and this can help with being able to have enough energy when you're exercising or doing your routines. In addition to this, it can also help you maintain your muscles depending on what you eat. For example, people who tend to weightlift, or people who weightlift tend to eat more protein to maintain those muscles. Nutrition or your food choices can also connect to several other dimensions of wellness. For example, emotional. Some can find it empowering to start eating better, to change their life, to focus more on their health. They can also find it empowering to learn how to cook, gain a new skill. For some people, it's a very social activity, cooking with friends or with family. You get that sense of community. It's also can be a very important part of your culture. But for this presentation, I mainly just wanted to focus on intellectual and physical wellness. Moving on to some of the adverse effects if you decide to continue eating unhealthy. In short term, poor nutrition can contribute to stress, tiredness, and it can affect your capacity to work. However, when you're talking about long term, it can lead to or increase your risk of developing illnesses or other health problems, such as becoming overweight or obese. You're less likely to have healthy dental hygiene, so you're more prone to maybe tooth decay. You might have high blood pressure, high cholesterol. You increase your risk of heart disease and stroke, type 2 diabetes, and all of the other things listed here on this slide. Having these diseases and concerns means that your lifestyle and your daily routines might change. Now you might have to worry about checking your blood sugar levels to make sure that they're not high. You're at risk for amputation or loss of eyesight if you have type 2 diabetes and you're not taking care of yourself. Um, However, to leave this presentation on a good note, there are some things that you can do to start eating healthier. Something that really helped me was practicing reading nutrition labels. You start to really understanding what you're putting in your body, and you just become a little bit more passionate.